All right, so Build 2014, it's amazing to be back here in sunny California. Happy birthday to Channel 9. I hope you enjoyed the Satya piece that you just saw. 10 years.
Congratulations.
And really happy to have Kevin Gallo here with us. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, it's great to be here.
And you're an engineering leader who's done a lot of work in this universal app sort of process. Why don't you tell us a little bit, briefly, what is a universal app?
So, a universal app really is an app that's designed to run across many different, device form factors. You can run on a PC, tablets, phones, and it adjusts itself so that the UI and the interfaces work across all of those different devices. And it has a shared code base so that you can write the app once, tune it for each of the devices if you choose to, and then publish it to the stores.
So as a developer, I'm using Visual Studio 2013 Update 2 or whatever it's going to be called.
That's what it's called.
And I say new universal app, and then I get a bunch of projects created for me. So essentially it's projects, multiple projects in one solution.
Right, that's how it's designed so that you can customize it. So there's kind of a shared project where the bulk of your code will go, but there will be specific things you may want to tune for for either a phone or tablet or a PC. And there are specific nodes for that work as well. So we kind of optimize for both. We know that, hey, you want to share most of what your assets are, but then you will potentially want to do some tuning. And we've optimized it for maximal sharing, but then you can go do that tuning.
Interesting. And so I just want to say out to the people who are watching, thank you for watching. Please ask questions. You'll see the player that you're looking at this right now. Underneath, you can type in, you can make up your name, you can use your real name, type in a question, ask Kevin Gallo. Keep it, sort of focused on universal apps, which is sort of a big topic.
Yep.
Now, when you think about the differences in devices, device sizes and form factors and experience, when I create a universal app, I'm going to have to probably modify some of the things that I'm doing that make sense in the context of a 4-inch device versus a 10-inch device, right?
Right. I mean, so the first thing is really making sure that the APIs are common. So there's a common set of APIs, and so the code will run. And now there are some extra APIs we've added. So like on phone, there's some things like SMS messaging that make a lot of sense, which don't make sense and aren't functional really on a PC. So it's not that we've just had this narrow set that only works across all of them. It's a fairly expansive set. And then there's some custom APIs that you are able to tailor for those devices. So it's not just about the UI. That is one of the major things that people look at. But it's also the appropriateness of what's running on that device. Your PC a lot of times is stationary, where your phone is very mobile, and you want to know where you are with geofencing, and so Bluetooth will connect into your other accessories. But the APIs are all in one set of common APIs that work across all of them.
Excellent. And from a sort of an engineering perspective, I'm able to grasp what I'm doing when I'm writing these for the same platform, if you will.
It is
similar.
Yeah.
It's the same platform.
I think most of the APIs, like 90-95% of all the APIs are shared.
Awesome.
And there's really only a small number that makes sense. When you actually look at them, everybody goes, oh yeah, okay, yeah. I don't want to not have that functionality on a phone just because it doesn't work on any other devices like SMS messaging.
Sure.
So really the developer really focuses on the business logic, sharing all of that code, and then customizing either whether it's being on the move, run with a phone, or whether some of the horsepower behind a PC. You can leverage those things as well. But that's kind of something you add on that really delights your customers and you do as an extra benefit.
And we can still mix and match languages, of course.
Of
right?
course.
So.
You got all your favorite languages, C#, VB, C++, JavaScript, all of them built against the Windows runtime. And it's a very familiar API set. I mean, it's not like we're introducing, sometimes I want to be clear, it's not a new API set. It is the API set that we've now expanded commonly across all of them. So you can reuse all that code, like I had reused all the Windows code that ran on Windows. I can reuse it all, we're using all those languages.
So at the risk of being redundant, the last time you and I talked at Build 2012, you had something there, it wasn't the same WinRT API that was on Windows Phone. Now it's the same.
Well, it was a subset. There's two things we've introduced differently since then. We introduced a larger subset. There was about a 20-30% sharing, which at times is nice, but it forced you sometimes to refactor your code because there wasn't as much in common. Now at 99.5%, almost all of your code is reused, which makes it simpler. Two, you didn't have the help of the project system. So the project system, you had to do linked files a little bit yourself, and you had to choose to share code, and VS didn't make it seamless. We have totally optimized that experience, and I tried to show all the little UI places where we just made it streamlined to do development, and there are even more, where you can go and just little places where I can go look at the view in, on a larger form factor and smaller one. I now have that shared template. All of that work makes it so much easier because it's just built into VS from the start.
Excellent, man. So for those of you watching, ask some questions. You're looking at us right now. How are you doing? There's a question thing underneath. I mean, we do Channel 9 Live, and we've been doing Channel 9 for 10 years for you to talk to us. So ask some questions. Felix, I know you're out there, man. So for existing Windows Phone apps that populate the store, and there's a lot of them,
right?
Those have all been written in Silverlight 8.0,
right?
Which doesn't have direct access to the new APIs, but the latest version of Silverlight does. So let's say that I have an app, right, Charles app.
Right.
I wrote it in Silverlight 8.0 because it was a Windows Phone app only.
Right.
And now I want to take advantage of some of these new killer WinRT APIs in the next version.
Yep.
How do I do it?
If you want to target those, what you do is just upgrade the project. It's very straightforward, like we've always done, is you upgrade your project from an 8.0 project to an 8.1 project, and you have access to all of the APIs. I mean,
that's all you have to do.
All you do is, as soon as you upgrade to 8.1, you now have access to all those APIs because you're building an 8.1 app. And so then you can go, and it'll only work on an 8.1 device. There's also the other option, which is you can use what we call light up, which you can keep it as an 8.0 app, but you can use reflection to actually dynamically detect some of the APIs, say, hey, am I on 8.1? And then I can take advantage of a few of the features. So if you're not going to use a lot of the features, sometimes it's easier to just maintain an 8.0 app that lights up when it's running on an 8.1 phone. So you have either of those options.
Excellent. And if you're a Windows Store developer that has an app, it's going to be easier to bring that to the phone now.
Right. I think this is what I demonstrated there, which is...
you did.
Yeah. So I'll just reiterate that.
Sure.
Which is, all you have to do in VS is say, I want to add Windows Phone 8.1 as a target. It'll automatically upgrade the project to be a shared project. And then you just simply drag and drop what's common, what's not, and start building your app.
Awesome. So now we're going to get the excellent questions from the people that matter. AG wants to know, what's the difference between PCL-based application and universal app? So portable class library.
It really is the next advance. So portable class libraries were the ability to have a subset of the APIs that worked across multiple different platforms. This really is expanded to include a lot more than just code. In portable class libraries, you really could only share code. Now in the shared projects, you can share all your assets, your code, your images, your localization, and your XAML. So now we have universal controls. So it really is taking that concept to the next level and allowing you to share not just the code, but every part of your application development cycle. So we really feel like it's kind of matured now to being fully for building about apps, not just building libraries.
Excellent. Chris Allison wants to know, can I make apps by only using HTML5, JavaScript, and CSS?
No, you have a complete choice. You can use C++ or C# with XAML. You can use DirectX. You actually can build your part of your app using DirectX and another part of the app using XAML. And you also have, of course, the ability, as you said, to use JavaScript and HTML. We give you the full choice on our platforms. Our goal is to give flexibility, and really also, we know people mix and match. So you can mix and match technologies. I mean, a little bit like in Office, I know they actually do this. In their application, a lot of it's built in XAML, but then parts of it that they want some high performance and more control, they built in DirectX. And so they have pieces of it, the Chrome's kind of built in XAML, and the rest is sort of parts of it, Canvas are written in DirectX. So you can kind of pick your language and your UI technology.
Awesome. So Fahim wants to know, what will you ensure that we get quality apps on Windows devices? So what will you do to ensure that we get quality apps on Windows devices? Interesting that you should ask that based on what my team's working on, but go ahead and tell us if you want to answer that question.
I actually think a lot of it is around this diagnostics and building apps on the platform ourselves. So I think those are two things. One, when we started out, we said, hey, we have a lot of tools internally that we use to really tune our apps. Let's make them available. Let's make sure that we're using the same tools that our third parties are using, and if not, we'll give out our tools. And you'll see us do more and more of that as we're building our own internal apps on the platform itself, all the way up, including Office. But as Joe showed, the calendar app, we had some performance challenges early on about how to make that thing really scream at startup. We have some technologies that will be announced, I think, tomorrow on making some of our technologies much more performant. And then there's the diagnostic tools. in really making sure that you can diagnose your app. It's fast by default, but when you do find that you have an issue, it's really easy to find it and fix it. And that just reduces the time developers have to invest to make a great app. And by default, the app actually goes very well.
Awesome. So we sort of already talked about this, but Nizam wants to know, is it possible to create a universal app from an existing WP8 app?
So that is really not as easy to go do. It's a little bit harder, but so if you started from an existing Windows Phone 8 app, there are some changes when you move that to be a universal app. Because we made some changes in our XAML, and they're for good reasons. I always try to explain to people that we didn't arbitrarily change XAML. We made XAML much more predictable. So in the XAML that we support on universal apps, we've removed a few features, added some other features, but really it's just a next iteration there. So there are some changes, just like whenever you upgrade your project, there's some changes you have to make for some improvements that we tried to make to the platform. But it leads to much more predictable XAML, where people had problems diagnosing it. Now, much more robust and predictable behavior in XAML. So that's a little bit of the work, and there's some APIs that we've changed a little bit. So there's a little bit of work. We actually tested that. Several of our apps, the calendar app was originally built as a Silverlight app on phone.
Okay.
So we could actually see how much work it would be to migrate that to be a universal app. And I think it took them a very short period of time to do that. So there's a little bit of change. There's actually a little bit of change if you go from a Windows Phone 8.0 app to an 8.1 app as well. You just change some of the background task model and things like that. But it's not major. It's pretty straightforward. A couple days worth of work to a week of work.
Sweet. Is the Mail app on Windows Phone 8 Silverlight?
No, that's a universal app. But we started building it as Silverlight, so that we would experience, that's what our customers have. They have Windows Phone 8.0 apps, so we want them to migrate to be a universal app, and we want to do the exact same thing.
Right on. So CM wants to know, as someone trying to get into developing apps, why would I choose Windows 8 platform over two other major competitors?
I don't know that it's choosing it over the other two. I don't know that you're saying you're choosing the other two. I think it's about the fact that all the platforms have your customers, and you're trying to reach your customers. So I think clearly it's about reaching your customer in most places, and we're trying to make that as efficient as possible.
Right on. Zilly wants to know, do I need to use multiple programming languages to develop an application for both Windows Phone and Windows 8.1?
No, you can use the same language. We support the same languages. There's no takeaways, and we support them all.
Thus the notion of universal app.
Yes.
Right on. So Roy wants to know, is MS making it easier to port Android applications to Windows?
We always are out there trying to look at different technologies. One of the ways we've done it is we're trying to get a lot of the libraries that people use. Like, very few people start from scratch. They usually start from using a bunch of libraries. We showed a whole partner slide about all the partners that are building with us, including things like Unity. And so that's really kind of our goal, is making sure that as a developer, a lot of these shared libraries that you have, you can just leverage them and use them on Windows Phone. So we're really making sure that there's a great ecosystem of shared code out there.
Absolutely. And Faisal wants to know, did I hear correctly that full.NET can be used on RT?
I don't believe we announced that, no.
Huh?
We did not announce that, no.
I don't think, but
no.
Where did you hear that, man?
Yeah, I know.
So Jason wants to know, I have a Windows Phone game that uses XAML and XNA. Wow, I haven't heard that word in a while. Is there any easy process to upgrade this game to 8.1?
I don't know that we've done that much to help the XNA port. You still need to port the XNA to DirectX, and a lot of the stuff we've done in the past still applies. Again, migrating to XAML is fairly straightforward. We experienced it ourselves. It was just a few changes that we made in the XAML itself. And there's probably some APIs that have changed a bit too, just to make sure that it makes sense from phone, PC, and tablet.
Cool. So speaking of DirectX, is DirectX 12 going to be on the phone that was announced at GDC, or that's coming some
We
other
have
time?
not announced the DirectX 12 and where it's coming.
Universal app, separate packages per platform to submit to store?
You still have separate app packages. At the end of the day, you build it and you have separate app packages. One of that is, if you want to have a custom app have a different look, they are different binaries at the end of the day. The project system makes it seamless, but you do submit, and when it builds them, they are slightly different.
Sure. So you have two different targets.
Two different packages that you then submit to the store.
Right on. So,
and we'll improve that over time. We'll probably bundle together one day and let you submit
and
it.
then just split it up in the cloud and do it that way.
But we don't do that today, so it's a little bit more manual.
Right on. So Alariza wants to know, is there any option for developers to use third-party HTML5 and JavaScript-based frameworks to build Windows Phone apps? Angular,
Oh yeah,
blah, blah,
so
blah.
third-party frameworks, yes. So we're looking to make sure that we fully support it. As was announced, we're really taking, a bite out of, just really trying to get into helping developers who want cross-platform and just really getting in there both by contributing. We're going to be contributing WinJS as open source. We're also making sure that it interops with all the different libraries out there, and that whatever JavaScript framework you're running, whether you want to build an app with it, run it on your website, it'll work with IE.
Awesome.
Interop is a very, very important thing to us.
Absolutely. I mean, it was made clear in the keynote. And great news about WinJS, by the way.
Absolutely.
That's huge news. I mean,
I'm excited.
Excellent. So when will the SDK for WP 8.1 be available?
The SDK, the RC, is actually being released. And so that'll be available. The actual RTM will be a little bit later.
Okay. So thanks for asking questions. Keep them coming. Really appreciate it. I know I do. Are there significant APIs which can't get shared between WP and W8?
I don't think so. I mean, we have a few APIs now that, based on the functionality aren't there. There are things like SMS that we really only have on phone but doesn't work on Windows, but there's no SMS chip in there. So printing is one of the other ones. But other than that, most of them are very, very minor. And we'll probably even remove those differences over time.
So has the shared core increased since our last conversation at Building?
And that actually is what it is. The shared core is now almost completely shared. I believe most code that developers write, 95% of it will be identical and it will work. And there'll just be some specific tuning. And we, I think, from an API point of view, are sharing over 90% of the API surface area.
Excellent. Carl wants to know, do universal Windows apps support building DirectX apps with C#? So not using C++.
Yeah, no, we don't support DirectX with C#. We only support it with C or C++.
Cool. Well, I mean, DirectX is a C++ API, so.
Yep.
Al, man, welcome back. So Al wants to know, so we got universal apps. When will we see Xbox One apps using this model?
So I think as was demonstrated, Xbox One already supports the same common API surface area. So that we were able to demonstrate and announce. Anything further will be in the future, and we haven't announced it yet.
So Bevy wants to know, what device are you using right now?
What device am I using?
Yeah.
I actually have a Nokia 1020 as my primary phone and for development. And I use a Surface Pro for my development for Windows.
Excellent. So just to kind of geek out just a little bit more about sort of the operating systems that are running across platforms now, as you mentioned, it's the same.
Yep.
But now leaving the API and going down to the OS level, it's pretty much the same as well, right? So we talk about shared core, we're talking about a shared kernel, right? So you're sharing drivers, it's ARM.
It's all shared. Yeah, I mean, really to get the APIs to be compatible across them all, you have to share the code. We have now merged all Windows Phone, and we're merging in the Xbox is also sharing a lot of that common code. And so it really is the same infrastructure all the way down from the APIs to the architecture of how all the DLLs are loaded, to all the way down to the drivers, the kernel, all of that is shared.
Excellent. So have there been any further optimizations for power management, memory management? Because you have if I'm using a Win8 device that has a lot more power and a lot bigger battery, so you must obviously have made specific optimizations for the smaller devices targeting
Absolutely.
ARM.
Actually, what we've done is accrued value across all the devices. By really spending time to tune it for the phone, every device gets faster. So it's not like we went and tuned it for phone and then bring the code back again. It's all a shared code base between Windows and Windows Phone for all the core, common core of the platform. So all of that tuning that we've done on phone to reduce memory, to improve even our diagnostics of memory for graphics, to just RAM, to even storage, all that's been optimized. Like an example is the AppX package has a great feature where it will remap anything that's common. So if you share libraries with other people, it'll actually only store it at the block level once.
Nice.
So it absolutely reduces, for a lot of these shared libraries that are very common, even if they're shared among apps, the file system itself has this very smart feature, which automatically shares at the block level, the storage, which is critical on phone where you just don't have a lot of storage. But now all of a sudden on Windows, you get this great feature as well. Even though you have a bit more storage, it's very, very smart.
Awesome. All right, so Spotty wants to know, why no VB support for universal apps?
We do support VB.
There's your answer. Maybe you're talking about VB6, but of course that's, what was that?
We support VB.net.
So it's .NET and native.
Yes.
And HTML.
Yep.
So speaking of native, Fred wants to know, will both C++ and managed C++, so C++ CLI, be supported for universal apps? So
basically the same C++ interfaces and support that works on Windows, and works on Windows Phone today is part of the Windows runtime, which I don't know if that's, I'm not an expert on the managed C++, it's most of what's in managed C++, I don't know if it's all, but that'll work fine, completely. It's the same, all little hats, those type of things.
Sure.
It's the common APIs that are part of the modern API set.
Absolutely, and they're used to hats if they're using C++ CX.
Yep.
Right? So Ed wants to know, will the universal app work on Windows 7?
No, it doesn't. It actually works on Windows 8.1 and Windows Phone 8.1. So those are the platforms that are supported, but not Windows 7.
Sure, and there's good reason for that, obviously. I mean, because you have a larger merge of...
We merged all of the kernel and the core and all that stuff. I mean, that would be basically replacing Windows 7, right? Because you have to replace all those substrate in that.
Sure. So ASDF, that's a creative name. So can you use JavaScript code? We've already talked about this, but so can you use JavaScript to code for universal apps?
Absolutely. We fully support JavaScript, HTML. We think it's a great programming language as well. And you can share a lot of stuff and build cross-platform apps.
Excellent.
Especially now with the WinJS stuff that we're enabling. You can use it in your website, use it to make a hosted web app or a packaged web app. All of that works fine.
Totally, and there's actually the Windows application, or the web application template that was made recently that makes it very easy for you to bring over your website to both of these platforms.
Absolutely.
So Roy wants to know, does Microsoft have any plans to open up writing kernel drivers for WinRT, Windows on ARM, to third-party developers?
Yeah, no comment on that.
Good question, Roy. All right, so Grim Kua, can you use C? Remember that language?
C, C++, C#, VB, JavaScript. Yes.
Nizam wants to know, any new live tile APIs?
We have made a few, I don't know if there's APIs, but we can do updating a little bit better from the background so that you can actually be a little richer in the feature there. So it's just a little bit more support of what you can do in the background so you can update your live tile.
Sure.
So there's been a few templates that we've done. We've converged our templates to a common set of templates between Windows and Windows Phone. So there's a few more templates, but I think the biggest feature I think we've got is the ability in the background when you get a notification, you have to run a little bit of code and then you can update your tile and have a little bit better experience on what's on the tile.
So the whole background, sort of the background computing on a power constrained environment is an interesting problem to solve.
Yes.
Because you can't constantly just sit there and hang out waiting for something to happen. Yep. So have you guys made improvements in the background?
So it's actually one of my, I'm glad you brought that up. It's one of my favorite features. So one of the things we're adding is triggers. And the nice thing about triggers is what happens is in the background, when you wake up either from a Bluetooth LE or a notification or some socket API, is you get to run a little bit of code. The CPU is limited, so you can't affect the battery life very badly like other platforms let you do. So it's responsible, but you get time to go do a little bit, squirrel away some information, and then you can notify the user or store some data to make your app much more interactive. So it allows you, like say from a messaging application, the trigger will get notified, you download any content, then you post a toast. So when the end user clicks on it, it's an instantaneous action. So we really made that responsible, API that makes you be responsible with your power, but yet still have this highly interactive experience with the end user.
Excellent. One of the things I've noticed with notifications in general is that I'll get notified by an app that something interesting has happened, like they've found out more information about the Malaysian Airlines tragedy.
Right.
And I'll click on it, but I won't get to that story because the app developer has just taken me to his app. to the front page, so I have to search for it.
Right.
So how granular can I be when a new story comes? I want the app to open, and that's the story I want the user to get to. I mean, I can do that as a developer.
I think so.
Right
Yeah.
on.
I mean,
So as a developer,
I think it might just be an app issue
absolutely.
itself. But my next favorite feature
Yes.
is the Action Center that we've supported, which allows you that even if you didn't click it fast enough, and it got put there, or you were doing something else, now you have this Action Center that makes it very easy for the developer to give the next level of detail. Not about what is just happening now, but what may have happened over the last hour or so.
Awesome.
So you can do a catch up, and it's very, very nice. Joe demoed that a lot. But I think it's great that developers can now leverage it, use it, manage it, and it really, again, another great experience for end users.
Awesome. So take advantage of that, developers. Hank wants to know, are traditional desktop apps being phased out? Still a long life?
So we didn't really talk about that here, but I'm glad it was asked. Absolutely not. We're not trying to phase out anybody's code. Your code counts. You've built those apps. We really want to make sure that you can leverage the investments that you've made in your apps on Windows. Now, what we haven't done in the past is made it as easy to transition to leveraging some of the newer technologies. And so sometimes that we've created a little bit of a chasm. What you'll see over the next few months and you'll see us kind of unfold a little bit about how we're going to stitch those together. I think you saw a little bit in Terry's where now you'll be able to run modern apps in Windows. And really, how in the world do I make a touch-based interface and a mouse-based interface and leverage all this code from all these mouse-based, keyboard-based apps work? And so we definitely are investing there. There's no abandonment at all. We just feel like one of the things I think we've done a little bit wrong here is made it a little bit too hard to leverage those investments in the existing apps. You'll see us improve that a lot.
Excellent. And Harry did a demo of an old LOB app, and he just got it running in a WinRT environment in a relatively easy way due to the new broker. What is it? The
WinRT broker.
Yeah.
And that's just, I call it the first installment. And that's, you can see where we're headed is we really want to bridge those worlds and make it easy for developers to leverage their code. Your code is your asset, and you love your code, we love it too.
Excellent. Well, you know what? It's always great to talk to you, Kevin. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks for the great questions. Happy birthday. Win.js questions. We're going to have somebody who knows the answers later today, Chris Anderson. David Treadwell is next. You saw him in the keynote.